everybody. Welcome to Against the Grain podcast. So today we have a little bit of a switch up. I know we usually have Manny as our host, but I have the privilege and honor of interviewing Manny today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cristina, and we have Manny Santillano here. We're going to go ahead and interview him today. So
Excited.
Manny, I'm super excited to hear your story. You're always interviewing everybody, but I'm so excited we finally get to just go through your journey and what it's been like for you. So I want to just go ahead and get into it. We see Manny, the preacher. We see Manny, the drummer. We see Manny, who is just like in ministry, but like, take us back. Like, what was that like for you? Like, how did you get here? Has it always been like that for you? Like, just tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, man, my story is wild. It's not super crazy. Like, you know, a lot of people that I interview on here and stuff, you know, they have like crazy testimonies as far as like, you know, I was in this and I was in that and everything. And my story is like a little bit different and stuff. So we'll take it way back. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Cristina, for jumping on this and everything. I know like a lot of people have said, you know, they want to hear my story and stuff. Like, when are you going to get an interview? Like, you got to get an interview. So I just thank you for taking this on. And when I came to you, were just like ready to go and stuff. So thanks for playing me on this side. But yeah, as far as my story, like I would say right now where I'm at is just crazy. Like you said, like, you know, I'm preaching on a Thursday, I'm playing drums, we're doing a bunch of stuff in ministry, we're doing this and stuff, you know. But yeah, it wasn't always like this for sure. We'll take it kind of way back. So I grew up in the city of like Baldwin Park, where we're at right now. And you know, my family, they were part of a church here in Baldwin Park as well too. And we kind of grew up in church and stuff. Everything was pretty straightforward, pretty normal and stuff. Nothing crazy as far as like a testimony and stuff. Like I said, I mean, usually people have crazy testimonies as far as like single parent home and all that stuff. Like we grew up very, very like, I wouldn't say like privileged, but like very blessed for sure. Like families in church, like all that stuff. And my dad's like a first generation Christian, like he says. So, you know, I'm talking about like my immediate family, like, you know, my mom and dad and stuff. So, that was kind of my early background, was just being raised in church. Like everything was all about church. Like Wednesday nights was church, Sunday church. Like my dad would say, like, no matter what, we're going to church. So that's kind of how I was raised up, just always in church. As far as like, you know, where I was at like spiritually though, like, man, it's night and day to where I'm at today compared to like back then and stuff, you know? But yeah, that's kind of like my background is just, I've always been raised in church. We can kind of get into specifics and stuff, but I think for me, like today, if I look at myself where I'd be at today, even from like 5 years ago, it's totally different. So I can't even imagine if I told my younger self at like a junior high, you know, if I was like in junior high or whatever, and I'm like, one day someone came to me and was like, one day you're going to do this, this, and that, I would freak out. Like I was a very quiet kid. Like I was just really shy. Like, you know, maybe an introvert. I don't know. I don't know if I describe myself as that so much, but I was just very shy. Mm-hmm. So to see where I'm at today, I'm doing a podcast. Like this is wild, you know? Yeah. So, but yeah, pretty much just raised in church growing up.
That's so crazy. Because it's like, I've known you for what, like 2 years now. It's going on 2 years. So like, I see this like fully bloomed Manny. So just like to hear you say like, I would never expect myself to be doing this. That's so crazy. So, okay. So you were raised in church, right? But you guys have had the church now Harvest Time for 10 years. We just celebrated 10 years this past year. This year will be 11 years. So what was that transition like from you going to your old church? I know you guys said that pastor says he was there for like 20 years. You know, you guys were like brought up in that church. So what was that like season in your life from like, okay, we were planted and like brought up in this church to now pastor is starting his own church? Like, what was that experience for like you? Because I know that you started the church with people that are still coming to Harvest Time. So what was that experience for you guys? Like how did that shift come upon? And then like take us from like the very beginning to like how like the church is now, just spiritually, because you were saying that like spiritually you just weren't really where you're at now. So how did that progression like happen?
So like I said, I mean, we're raised in church and stuff, but you know, shout out to our previous church and everything, but it was different than what we're at now. It's funny because we just led worship there recently and stuff, and it's just crazy to go back and kind of see where we came from and stuff. But you know, with our previous church, like it was very how would I put this? We were very like kind of like just comfortable. You know what I mean? I'll never forget the time. Like one time, I think I was like probably like in high school. And I asked one of my older friends, and his parents were also like pastors and stuff in our previous church. And I told him one day, I was like, hey, I was watching, TBN. It's like a channel, we call it Channel 40, but back then before cable and stuff, we only had a certain number of channels, right?
Yeah.
There's like a Christian TV program called TBN. And I was like, I was watching Channel 40, TBN. I was like, and I see like these preachers like laying hands on people and people are like falling out. I was like, and then they're doing miracles and all this stuff. I was like, what do you think about that stuff? Like we don't really see that, huh? Mm-hmm. And he's like, nah. And then he's like, nah, not really. We don't see that. And I'm like, man, I was like, that's like a special thing, huh? And he's like, yeah. He's like, only like pastors like are able to like do that stuff. Wow. And I was just like, yeah, you're right. Like I totally like bought it. And that was kind of just the mentality. Like this whole spiritual side was like, it was different. So that just goes to show you where we were at spiritually. Yeah. We were very knowledgeable in the word of God and everything like that. But like spiritually, it was kind of just like, we had heard about things like that, but it wasn't for a regular church member to do. That was like only for like pastors and stuff. Right. So yeah, that's kind of just like the upbringing that we had. And then, as far as like, kind of branching out and stuff, I'll never forget, my dad, he was, I think it was the same program he was watching, and he saw something where someone was like, on TV, and they were like, you need to teach your kids, you need to, train them up in the things of God, all this stuff. And he remembers that, like, he just felt in his spirit, like, wow, like I really need to like up the game with my kids. Like it's more than just taking them to church every single week. Like, I swear we did not miss, like, never. Like, my dad gets on people now for, like, brunch and, like, missing church. Yeah. I'm telling you, he lives what he preaches. Wow. We would not miss a Wednesday or a Sunday. Like, we were always in church. So I'll never forget when he came to us and he was like, hey, so, like, I kind of feel like God's calling me out. I'm going to talk to the pastor and I'm going to kind of, like, let him know that I think I'm going to be, like, stepping out and stuff. And by this time, we had just started the Bible study at our house, and he had went to our previous pastor and told him, like, what God kind of put on his heart and everything. And the pastor gave him the okay to start the Bible study. Yeah. So we started this on Thursday nights, and it was only 8 of us, very small in my living room. Those days were so cool. I know where my dad's teaching on revival right now and stuff. So he'll mention, like back in the day and stuff like that. And I'll never forget those early days. Like, it was like 8 of us, and then it went to like 12, and then it just kind of grew from there. But from there, he was just like, hey, like, this is really growing. By that time, I think we were hitting up to like 100 people one time, like in my house on a Thursday night. And this was just like a regular Bible study, but people just started coming and stuff. We started moving my mom's furniture out, and it just became a whole thing. And we were really seeing revival, honestly, in our house. But it started getting so big, and then my dad was just like, he told the pastor, I remember, like, he didn't get a lot of support at that time. And that was hurtful, to be honest. Like, I'll just be, like, straight, like, this is against the grain. Come on. Like, we're just going to be honest. Like, it hurt because we were raised in our previous church and stuff. And it's so cool. Like I said, we're good now. We went back and just led worship there. 10 years later, we actually got invited back. That's so crazy.
That's awesome.
But so we're good now and stuff, right? But at the time, it just kind of hurt because, like, a lot of people, I'm not just talking about, like, the pastors or anything, but even just, like, church members, people that, like, we were in this church for 20 years. Yeah. Like, people that we were raised with, that I grew up with since the nursery. Like, no one left this. A lot of people didn't leave like, churches back then. I feel like now it's kind of like common to see people jump around and stuff, but everyone, like, we all were raised from, like, the nursery all through, like, our 20 years or whatever. Wow. So anyways, like, I remember, like, other people that were just, like, talking about us and stuff, saying things like, what are they doing? I remember it was a thing of, like, we started getting, like, words that we were probably, like, a cult and, like, I don't know, just, like, stupid little stuff, right? Like, comments and, like, it was just new to them. And then we started getting through, like, all of a sudden, like, the Spirit of God started moving. So there was, like, deliverance and these things that we never heard of. We've only heard of but never experienced, right? So it just hurt to hear some of these, like, things, you know what I mean? But I'll never forget when my dad was just like, yeah, like, but we were still attending our previous church at the time. And then that's when he hit us with, like, hey, God's calling me out. And I was like, where are you going to go to church at? Like, we don't even have a church. Like, there's just a Bible study on Thursday nights. Like, what are you going to do on a Sunday? And he's like, I don't know. But God's just like, he's calling me out. I talked to the pastor already. Like, I'm stepping out. And I was so mad. My dad's going to laugh at me. On this. Because I remember telling him one time we kind of got into it. And I remember, like, our previous youth leader, because Andrea and I, my wife, Andrea, shout out to Andrea, but my wife and I, like, we were youth leaders at the time, and we were under a youth pastor, And I remember at the time that, the youth pastor found out about the Bible study, and he was one of them that was just like, he wasn't supportive at all. We basically, like, we got called into a meeting and we got basically kicked out of our leadership roles because of this Bible study. Yeah. And I'm telling you, these are people that we've done life with for 20 years. And all of a sudden we just started getting backlash like crazy. So check this out, right? So so he's like, he calls us into a meeting, was like, hey, like, there's a lot going on right now. Like, you guys are starting this whole other thing. And I was like, wait a minute, like, slow down. Like, my dad already talked to the senior pastor. They're cool. He was cool with it. Now it's blowing up. My dad's stepping out. Like, we're doing everything right. Like, we're not trying to, like, steal people or anything like that. Like, we didn't even have a church at the time. There was no Harvest Time Church. It was just a Bible study. Yeah. So, like, I want people to, like, know that because, you know, like, there was no HTC at all at this time. But he was like, no, like, we don't like it. Like, you guys are just doing too much. You guys are too spiritual now. Like, all these accusations. Whoa. He's like, we're taking you down. I remember, like, literally, like, crying because I'm just like, I felt like the end was coming. I knew that we were going to have to get out of that church. I'll never forget, Andrea's going to laugh at me too when she watches this, because I told her one time, she asked me, when like things were barely kicking off, she asked me like, do you ever see yourself leaving like our previous church? And I was like, heck no, I was born here. I'm gonna get back. I didn't get baptized yet. I was like, I'm gonna get baptized here and I'm gonna have my funeral here. I was like, wow. No one's gonna take me out. I was so prideful. Like, yeah, I was so down for this church. Right.
Dang.
So anyway, so I never forget when we got kind of like, they stepped us down, and then when I felt God was like calling us out, I'll never forget that, because I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, it was kind of a scary thing because we were so comfortable. Yeah. Like, that's the biggest thing. So last thing I'll share on that was like, my dad and I, we got into it like a couple weeks later, something happened, and he'll laugh at this, 'cause I'll never forget. I was like, we got into it, and I was just like, you know what? I was like, and we have a different relationship now. Our relationship's good, but back then I was like, you know what? I was like, you're lucky. Like, you're lucky you have me. I was like, and we were talking about something about the ministry, right? We just started. I was like, you're lucky you have me. I was like, because of you. I was so upset with them. I was like, because of you. I was like, people hate us because of you. Like, people are saying all this stuff about our family and everything. I was like, you better treat me right. Like, this is all your fault. Like, I literally said that to him because I felt at the time, like, I forgot something happened. And I felt like, dude, like, I'm doing all this. We're doing all this for you. Like, this is your move. And like, we're getting all this backlash. You know what I mean? Like, you better like, you know, appreciate me or something. Right. Yeah. And now I look back and I'm like, man, that's so messed up for me to say. And I've apologized. We're good now. He laughs at me now. But he'll bring that up sometimes. He's like, you remember? Because, you know, we have everything we have now and everything. Yeah. Like, things are booming. And he's just like, remember what you said, though? Like, it was all my fault. Like, you didn't want to come. And I was just like, yeah, I was just crazy. So anyways, that's just kind of like early memories I have. But it was a struggle. It was wild. But it's just all about, we were just comfortable. Yeah. So it was crazy.
That's so crazy. Okay, so two things I want to touch on that you said. The first one is, it's so crazy because you and Andrea, were you guys even dating at this point? Like, yeah. I know you guys had met at your old church, right? But when you guys were youth leaders together, were you guys dating at that point in time?
Yeah, we were. So like, if anyone doesn't know our story real quick, like, I hit her with the Frisbee in the face at a youth camp. Oh my gosh. And we got together from like, well, we didn't get together from that. Like, okay, let's be honest. She had an ex-boyfriend with her at the time at this youth camp. And I wasn't aiming for her or anything. Me and my friend E-Man, we were just playing with this Frisbee or whatever at a youth camp. I threw it, bang, hits her in the face. And that's, I think, the first time she kind of like noticed me, because she's like a year older than me. Yeah, I got an older woman. Right?
Wow.
Right. But yeah, she's like a year older than me, right? So I was like younger and stuff. Yeah. So that's the first time she like technically noticed me. But I was really cool with her brother Andrew, because I started playing drums and he plays guitar and stuff. So I'd go over his house sometimes, I'd see her. And so that was the first time we kind of like met in a sense. Kind of crazy, you know what I mean? But after that, then I would see her around. She kind of went out into the world, and she'll be on here one day and tell her story, but she kind of went out into the world. And then I'll never forget when she started coming back is when she became like a youth leader, and I was already going to serve as well too. So that was like, I think we were probably like, I was probably like 19 or 20 at the time. Oh, okay. And then that's when we first started kind of talking. And then I think by 21, we were already kind of together. But yeah, we became youth leaders, and that's the last position that we had before we actually left and stuff. So yeah, we were technically like boyfriend and girlfriend at that time. Dang, yeah, but I hit her with that Frisbee right in the face. God works in mysterious ways. That's all I'll say. It's crazy. But yeah, we have a funny story.
Yeah, it's so funny. It was almost like God was like, hey, check out my homeboy over here.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
And she had her boyfriend there.
Yeah.
They were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. I swear, I thought he was going to beat me up. I had her smacked in the face. He was like a taller guy and stuff too. He was like older, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, I was kind of scared a little bit, but
dang, that is
I
so
guess
crazy.
I won in the end though.
Right? So, okay, so then you and Drea met there, and then so Drea was like one of the first ones that started doing the Bible study with you guys, right? So,
yeah. It was her and her, one of her cousins was there. And then shout out to Steph. Steph was there. They weren't like super close at the time like they are now. But yeah, Andrea was a big part in like what happened for sure. She like really encouraged my dad, like, you should do it. And especially when we started getting backlash from our previous church and stuff, Andrea really stepped up and like encouraged us, encouraged our family and everything. So shout out to Andrea. She had a big part in that.
Dang, that is so cool. That's so crazy. Just to see your guys' like journey now and your story now. That's so awesome. Another thing that I mentioned too. Okay, so you were talking about how like you got kind of upset like when that transition was happening from like the Bible study was like starting to like gain momentum versus like, you know, you were getting kicked out as like a youth leader.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? But then Pastor always talks about how like he was like, oh, my boy started crying when I told them it was only like a 4-part series.
Oh yeah, he said that to him.
What was that like though? Because you're saying that you're telling like you were getting mad at your dad because all this was happening, but then you know, Pastor is saying that like you and your brother were like crying because it was only a 4-part series. So like, how did that happen?
I think because it's 10 years has happened already. I think the stories kind of get mixed up. So I'm gonna let the I'm gonna set it straight right now on ATG.
Okay.
No, I think the timeline's a little bit. So I'll clear the air. So it's 2 different stories basically that happened. So yeah, it was supposed to only be a 4-part series, and then he was supposed to end it. This is when we were still going to our previous church. We were still plugged in. We were still youth leaders. My dad was still serving, speaking, and all that. And then he was teaching the junior high. He was teaching junior high for like Sunday school. We call it like Hour of Power. But so he was only supposed to be a 4-part series. That ended, and then that's when he was like, okay, like that was it. But people were coming and people were like encountering God, and it was a fresh thing that was happening. We felt God was on it. So that's when we told my dad, like, you can't end it. Like, you can't end it. We got to keep going. And then that's when he told our pastor, like, hey, like, because our pastor wanted it to basically end, right? And that's when he told him, like, hey, this is happening. Like, we're going to kind of keep going and stuff. And that's when my dad had to step down and everything because God was telling him to keep it going. But we didn't cry in that moment. Okay. The part that like it got emotional, and I don't know. I don't think I cried. He says my boys cried. Maybe I did. I don't remember that, but maybe I cried. I think my brother did though. I don't know. I think there was some tears. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But I'll tell you this: the one part that we did cry was when we were gonna shut. And this was a dark time for sure in HTC history. We got connected with an apostle, and man, it was a crazy time. Like I said, some dark times. We got connected with this apostle at the time. There was a group that was meeting up in the high desert, like Hesperia, Victorville area, right? Yeah. And we met them through like mutual friends and stuff like that. So we were doing events here and different things. We were connecting with other churches. It was such a cool time we started the Bible study because in our previous church, we were very like kind of secluded in a sense. We didn't connect with a lot of people. Like honestly, it was basically just like our church and that was it. But once we got out and we started doing our thing, like we got connected with David Andrade. We went under him and his ministry, and he knows so many people. Like I've had him on the podcast. He's an amazing man of God. And so he started connecting with like Sylvia and like all these people. So somehow the whole network, we got connected with this apostle. So he started coming down. We started doing events, worship events. We did this thing in Pico Rivera, stuff like that. Well, this apostle, he and his church, they came down and we connected with these guys. And these guys, I never forget, it was like 3 of them. We became really close with them, and they had their whole church up there. And they started telling us like, hey, there's like deeper things in the Word of God. There's like secrets and mysteries, and there's like Hebrew, and there's different like deeper meanings and stuff like that. And they were so cool, and they were so down to like teach us, and like we started learning so much from them. Well, slowly we started like going up because they used to have their services like Sunday afternoon. So after service, some of us would go up there, and my dad started connecting with them. And then like slowly but surely, like some of our people started going up there and kind of started like making that their church and stuff like that. It kind of started slowly. And then little by little, all of a sudden it turned to like, they were like the only ones that knew the truth. And they were the only ones that were going to be saved. And they were the only ones that, you know, that were going to pass judgment on everyone out. Like they were better than everybody. And that only started when some of our people that were going to our church started going up there. Cause like I said, originally the guys that were there, they would come down and connect with us. They even came to Bible study a couple of times. They were so cool. So it never started like that. But honestly, it wasn't until some of our people started going up there that this thing started happening. So I'm gonna call it like it is. I'm gonna call it spade a spade. Like it basically turned into like a cult straight up. Like a lot of fear, a lot of like being like very exclusive. We're the only ones that have the truth. So people started getting like mixed up. Like, wait a minute, does Harvest Time teach exactly what they're teaching? Because if not, then Harvest Time is not teaching the truth, and there's no revelation, and these people do. There was just this big old like just junk that was happening. So the part that started people like my dad says we were like crying and stuff. It got so bad to the point my dad was just like, we're done. We're done with HTC. There's so much back and forth. People are going like there, coming here. People are saying stuff. Our leaders are fighting. Our church is like basically experiencing like a church split. Wow. And this is still kind of early on in our history and stuff. So like we had a church, it was HTC already, but we weren't as big as we are now and stuff. So my dad's just like, I'm so done with this. There's so much stress. There's so much drama. Like we're closing it down. Like my dad was done. My dad was done. And I'll never forget. I think just because of the emotions at the time, so much was going on, and we were, you know, familiar with all the drama and stuff. I think that was the time when my dad was just like, we're ending it. And then that's when we got like emotional and stuff. And like I said, I don't remember specifically if I cried. I might have, but I remember that I'll never forget. It was in our living room. It was like a family conversation, and yeah, it got crazy. And basically my brother and I were like, we can't stop this. And I think we said something wild, like, if you stop this, we're going to keep it going. Like you could stop it, but we're going to do something else. Like, we were just like, what else are we going to do? Like, we're going to go back to our old church. Like, that's not happening. Yeah. Like, what other church, like, I sound like that cult up there, to be honest, but I'm like, what other church around here are we going to join? Like, no one's on the level of like, and I don't mean to be super exclusive, but HTC is a special place. Yes. Like, we believe in deliverance. We believe in like being sold out for God, you know, having a righteous, like being very righteous, like, you know, but still being cool and hip and like trendy, and you know what I mean? Not being super weird either. Like we're very, our church is very special. So at the time, I remember my brother and I and with Andrea were thinking like, where are we going to go if this isn't it, you know? So I remember we said something like that to my dad, like, we're going to keep going, but we were pretty emotional because we're like, dang, HEC is done. Like, that's crazy. So anyways, all I have to say is that's where that whole started. So yes, it was a 4-part series. It ended, we kept going, but we didn't cry at that part. We cried when this whole dumb cult stuff started happening. I'm so glad we were done with that. But that was a whole journey in itself.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy. So just like, it's just so crazy because it's like, that's where discernment really comes in. Like, you have to be so cautious and so careful and really listen to the voice of God with who you're even talking to, like whose church you're visiting, because it started off as something so simple. Like someone coming to your Bible study, you guys were like really cool, got connected, and they're like, hey, come visit our church. And then like next thing you know, bam, it's a cult. And like, so how did that happen though? So like, was it apostles that came to your Bible study? That's
one.
One apostle. Yeah. So then how did it happen where you guys kind of meshed like Harvest Time with this church to where the leaders were going there and the church got kind of split? Did you guys like open it up to the church and be like, hey, let's go check it out? Like, what? Yeah,
I mean, so originally it started with just like they came down to visit on a Bible study, like on a Thursday night, the apostle, and then like 3 or 4 of them came down, and they were cool. They were cool guys and stuff. I'll never forget them. And one of them was like a worship leader. There was like actually a couple worshipers at the time. So they loved Andrea. Like, we just connected. Like, it felt so good, you know? Yeah. And like I said, I think it wasn't them. It honestly wasn't them. Like, it was literally our guys that were from here. They started like going up there, and then they're the ones that started that whole stuff. And honestly, to see where they're at today, like, it's bad now. Like, as far as like what they're doing, like, it's just, it's crazy. And it's just sad to think like, man, those were our people that started that, because it was not like that. It was not like that back then. So as far as like connections and stuff, they would come down on a Thursday night. So we're just like, okay, cool. Like, kind of like, we'll go up there too. So on a Sunday after our church, we'd go up there, and my dad would go too, my brother, like all of us would go. But slowly we started catching things and hearing things. Like, it started becoming very exclusive, very like, we're the only ones. No one else is teaching this. I'm the only one with this truth. Like, but it's all word of God. But I will say this, like, there was a lot of good things that we learned from that. A lot of good things. And there's a lot of men, it's funny because like there's a lot of men and women of God that still connect with them and shout them out. And sometimes we look at it and we're just like, man, these people don't really know who these people are, because on the outside, it looks really good. Yeah. Like they're on fire. Like their worship is like, you guys, man, people think our worship is long. They go like 3-hour worship. And then there's certain, like the apostle speaks for another like 2 or 3 hours. Like their whole service is like at least like 4 or 5 hours. Wow. Like it's crazy. So like they're on fire, they're going for it and stuff. So on the outside, and then they have the revelation, like, you know, they teach on the secrets and the mysteries. They go deep in the word. Like there's a lot of good stuff that we've learned, a lot of good stuff. So I can't hold that against them. I can't like hold them to that. But again, it just comes down to like, we're better than everybody else. We're the only ones that are saved. If you leave this place, you're going to hell. Like, I mean, I have the clip on my phone. Like I showed it to you earlier. Like it's wild. Yeah. Like it's sad. So anyways, that's how we kind of connected. We're just kind of going back and forth. But then slowly we started really like, I'll never forget this real quick. I was like, I remember one time like my brother and Andrea were really like, really into it, really going, really like, you know, just like really into it and stuff. And I remember for me, I was the first one that was kind of being a little bit like, this is kind of getting a little weird, like something like about it. So I was just, even back then I was a little wild. I remember just driving. It was just us three, Andrea, me and Sam. And I was in the car and I was like, I don't know why, I just got upset. And when they were kind of like talking about it or something, I was just like straight up, like just driving. I just looked back and I'm like, you guys are part of a cult and that's so wrong. And it's all about, that's all fear. Like I just went crazy on them. And they were just like, you're blind, you're veiled. Like you don't know, like that's just your flesh talking, like all this stuff. But I was like, one day you guys are going to see it. And so I was just so mad because I was just like, dang, you guys are like being led astray, you know? And then, yeah, sure enough, I think like, maybe like a couple months after that is when we really started noticing. And then really once the division started and everything, we started getting that little church split and like leaders started splitting. I'm going to be honest, we're on against the grain. I'm telling you, like Andrea and I even broke up for a day. Dang. I'm going to say it right here. A whole day. And it is what it is. That's just part of our story. Literally, she was really into it. And I don't hold this against her. And, you know, like it was just fear. It's a lot of fear. Like if you leave this place. But it was literally to the point where it was like, I was like already doubting and stuff. Like I didn't want to go. And she was just like, well, like, how can we even be together if we're unequally yoked? Wow. And I was just, I'm a Christian. Like, it's not like I'm in the world. Like, I'm just don't go to that church. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when it came to that, I'm just like, we're done then. Like, I'm not doing this. And I remember, I'll never forget, this part I did cry, I will be honest. I literally go home and I burst into my parents' room. I'll never forget. Like, it was wild. I was like, probably looked like a drama king, but it was bad. I burst into my parents' room. I just throw myself on the floor and I'm like crying. And I'm like, I hate this. I'm sick of this. I'm so upset. Cause I'm like, this whole thing, literally my wife and I, like, and my girlfriend at the time, but I was gonna propose to her. I was already thinking about proposing to her, right? So like, we were really serious. Like, this was the one. Yeah. And I just remember throwing myself on my parents' floor, like crying, like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I was so upset. And they're like, what's going on? What's going on? I told them like kind of what happened and stuff. And I think that's when my dad really realized like, whoa, like this is toxic. Like this is bad. And I remember the next day, like I'm irresistible, I guess. Cause
oh my gosh.
No, I'm kidding. But Andrea came back. Andrea. She came back to me. No, I'm just kidding. No, but she came back and she was, it took a day, Yeah. But she came back and she's like, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. And I'm just like, all right. Like, you know what I mean? We didn't have the answers yet. Like we didn't. It wasn't like she was like, okay, it's fine if you don't go. Like it was still a struggle, but somehow she's like, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, we literally broke up because of this stupid ministry. Like, man, it was wild. It's all fear, And then slowly that's when she kind of started pulling out and stuff. And that was hard at first. There was so much anxiety that everyone was going through, not just her, but like a lot of people were like, oh my God, like I'm leaving, but wait a minute. They say if I leave, I'm going to hell. Wait a minute. Am I falling away? Wait a minute. Am I like, all this stuff. Like it's literally like you're backsliding, but you're not. You're like in church still and you're a Christian, but you're backsliding from that ministry. So it was like, it was wild. So that whole process was hard, but thank God we're like done with that.
That is so
it was crazy. But yeah, we broke up.
Wow. Yeah. I can't even imagine like the tug and pull that you guys must have gone through. I remember when I first came on the podcast and I shared my testimony on the podcast, like right after Andrea was here in the room and she was like, I kind of like sort of know what you were talking about. Like I know what you felt like, because that's when you guys first shared with me this whole cult experience. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dang, that is so crazy. So I completely understand that like tug and pull of like, is this right? Is this not? Like, what do I do? What's the truth? So dang, that is wild. So speaking of backsliding, you guys were saying that you guys were backsliding from this church, right?
Yeah.
just backsliding as a whole in general, have you, Manny, ever found yourself like you were born and raised in the church, right? Christian your whole life. Have you ever found yourself like really truly though? Like I know you mentioned that Drea kind of went to the world for a second, but have you ever found yourself like backsliding at any point in time?
That's a good question. Yeah, so like my testimony is pretty crazy, right? Like I've never drank alcohol. I've never smoked nothing, never stuck anything in my arm, never snorted nothing, like nothing. Even like sex before marriage, never did it, waited for my wife, like all that, right? So like a lot of people on the outside can look at that and be like, dang, this dude's like perfect, right? Like never did any of that stuff. Like even when it comes to like even just stuff that like, okay, my people might be like, all right, well, you didn't have sex before marriage, but like pornography is a big thing. Like none of that was in my life at all. Like nothing, right? Like I was very like focused, you know? And I think the one thing that kind of kept me on that was there was this movie that my dad and I watched one time, and it said one of the quotes in the movie was like, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent, you know? And my dad, he didn't, you know, the quote was from a movie, but my dad would like constantly say that and would like remind me and stuff. So that's something that always like played through my head anytime, like, cause like in high school and stuff, like we'll kind of throw it back a little bit. So like in junior high, I wasn't too crazy. Like I was still pretty calm. I was still pretty quiet. But I think actually like my 8th grade years when I started like hanging out with like, I had like my friends group and stuff, and we had so much fun. We were wild. We like jumped one of our teachers, like, just like, you know, we wrestled him in the cafeteria. I started kind of acting out a little bit with this group.
Wait, you jumped one of your teachers?
Yeah, it was wild.
What do you mean you jumped one of your teachers?
Yeah, it was wild. We got suspended. No, we were going to get suspended, but then we just had to pay for his glasses that we broke. But basically this teacher, like, okay, so think about me. I'm like this good kid, never did nothing wrong, kind of keeping myself. All of a sudden, 8th grade, I start meeting my friends group and everything. And there was like 8 of us guys and stuff. And we were all sitting down at the lunch table. And then this teacher, he kept like kind of picking on us and messing with us all throughout the year, right? And we're like, okay, we're in 8th grade. We thought we ran the school because we're 8th graders, right? And we're going to go to high school next year. So we're like, we got to go out big. The teacher comes up, and one of my friends, shout out to Michael, he ended up passing away in 2007. I was 17 at the time. He died in a car accident. He was one of my best friends, but he was wearing a pink bracelet, and it was for like breast cancer awareness or something, right? But it was pink. So the teacher comes up. This is a Christian school, okay? So we went to a Christian school. And he comes up to my friend and like pokes him hard in the chest. Like this was back then when like teachers can still do stuff to like kids and stuff. Nowadays, like you can't even look at a kid wrong before they report you and you're fired, right? Yeah. But he literally went up to my friend, like we're all sitting down on the table eating lunch. He pokes him hard in the chest like this. Boom, pokes him hard in the chest and was like, "What's that pink thing on your wrist? Like that's for girls." He said something like that. And we all kind of looked at him, but he was kind of joking, but still kind of being mean, right? And we all kind of looked at each other and we just knew, we're like, it's on, like it's happening right now.
Oh my gosh.
I'll never forget. Like he was on that side, pokes him in the chest. I remember I was sitting right here next to him. I jump on the table and literally like jump off from the table, boom, get on, grab the teacher and all my friends at the same time. We all got on him, right? Boom, we're wrestling him. I'm punching him in the leg, giving him dead legs. My friend has him in a chokehold and he's giving him like a noogie on the top, right? Like we weren't trying to like really beat him up, but at the same time, like we were socking him. Like one of my friends kneed him in the butt. Like we were just like, we were going crazy. I mean, think about this. The whole school is like in the cafeteria and stuff. And so anyways, we ended up breaking his glasses and the principal came and I thought we weren't going to walk for graduation. Like it was just crazy. So anyways, we did not end up getting suspended. All we had to do was like pay for his glasses or whatever. Oh so we started getting like, we were just kind of wild, right? So that was like 8th grade. And then all of a sudden freshman, sophomore, junior, junior, even up to senior, I started like, it was kind of the same group. A couple of us went to different high schools and stuff. But I noticed at that time, like I just wanted to be just different. I was kind of like, man, I felt like I was just like this good kid. And I kind of just didn't want that for myself. Like, I started really wanting to hang out with friends that were like bad. So I'll never forget, like in high school too, like probably like when I was a sophomore, I had a friend who actually went to our old church. It was in Baldwin Park. So a lot of those kids were from that area and stuff. And he was a tagger, like he wrote graffiti and stuff. And for some reason, I just thought like, oh, that's the coolest thing. Like, that's so cool, you know? Boom, I started like doing stuff, buying markers and everything. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I go to like private school. Like, what am I doing mixing with these kids, right? Yeah. I'll never forget one time I was like going to a basketball practice and I see him like getting arrested by West Covina, the cops or whatever. He got caught like writing graffiti or whatever. Boom, he gets arrested. And I see him, they throw him on the back of the cop car. And And I started crying on the way to practice when I saw that. And that was like a reality check. Like, dude, why are you hanging out with these friends? Like, you're supposed to be playing basketball, doing this stuff with your school. Like, why are you over here doing this stuff, you know? But I started noticing that in high school. I started doing that. So all I have to say is, like, I never did any of these things, but I started mixing with, like, I love being around just, like, anything that was, like, bad, you know? Even up to, like, being in high school and then going to college. Like, my friends were not Christian, even though we went to Christian school. So I would never do anything, like, bad in a sense, but I would always drive. So if they were going to go out and, like, drink or something or whatever, I'd be like, oh, I'll drive. You know what I mean? If they're going to, I don't know, like, they weren't bad. They never did drugs or anything like that. But even if they're just like, I don't know, we want to listen to this music or that music, I was there. I was, like, participating, but I wasn't singing, you know what I mean? It wasn't really crazy, because it's like, I can't do that stuff and then be a Christian and then play drums. And I was just, like, doing stuff. So I kind of felt like at the time, I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And I'll never forget this. Andrea, one time, she asked me, or she was talking about her story, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, this was back when we were at our old church. She's like, yeah, like, man, I'm so glad where I'm at with God today. And I was like, really? Like, it's cool to see you coming back. This is when she was backsliding, she's coming back. And she's like, yeah, she's like, man, like, I'm so glad I didn't die, like, doing what I was doing and stuff. She's like, because I would have went to hell. And I was like, what do you mean you would have went to hell? And then she's like, yeah, she's like, I was, like, backsliding and stuff. I was like, wait, but, like, you were a Christian though. Like, you went to church, you would come to church and stuff. She's like, yeah, but I wasn't saved. And I'll never forget when she told me that. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And she's just like, yeah, like, if you're out there doing those things, even if you're around it, like, you're not truly saved. And when she said that to me, like, I swear my eyes opened. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because at the time I was still hanging out with my old friends. Like, literally, we'd go to, like, a party or something, and then the next day, like, I'm at church, but I wasn't doing anything at the party. I wasn't talking to girls. I wasn't drinking. Oh, I could have for sure, like, been a part of that. I could have drank, could have did all this thing. I didn't do those things, but I was there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll never forget when she told me that, I got a reality check hard, and I was just like, whoa. And this was kind of before we, like, really, like, got together as boyfriend and girlfriend. And I was just like, she's the one. Like, that's crazy. Like, she gave me this huge revelation. Yeah, like, whoa, even though, like, I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking, I'm not talking to these girls, me even just being there and being around and not giving my all to God 100%, like, am I really saved right now? Wow. And that was, like, a huge eye-opener for me. So as far as my testimony, as far as backsliding, I never did any of those things. But to be honest, if I stood before God and I died at that age, I don't think God would have known me. You know, it says in the word, right? Like, God literally will tell people, like, I never knew you. Yeah. Like, depart from me. Like, I'll be like, no, God, I know you though. I went to church and I did all these things. He's like, yeah, but I don't know you. You never spent time in prayer with me. You never opened the word other than just at church. You know what I mean? So I think about that and I'm like, maybe that wasn't technically backsliding as people would think, but I don't think I was saved during that time, to be honest. If I would have died, I probably would be in judgment, to be honest with you. Wow. I just didn't give it my all, you know? And I mean, I can't blame anyone but myself, but at the time, to be honest, I mean, you know, even the church leaders that were, you know, ahead of me, the worship leaders, they were all doing stuff. Yeah. They were all backsliding. Like, they were, like, really doing stuff. You know what I mean? Youth leaders drinking, and let's be real, like, youth leaders buying youth alcohol. Wow. Youth leaders are over 18. They're adults buying your youth. I mean, imagine if that happened right now. Yeah. It's like our youth leaders buying, like, the kids. What?
That's insane.
Taking them out, partying and stuff. What? Yeah. A minor, and you're giving them alcohol? Like, so we didn't have the best examples, but at the same time, like, when you stand before God, I couldn't be like, yeah, but my youth leader. He's like, no, what about you? You know what I mean? So I think it's like a double. It's like, yeah, it's both. You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you stand before God. That's kind of just my little background. So, yeah.
So you were saying that you were on your way to basketball practice, and as you were on your way to basketball practice, you just so happened to see the guy that you were hanging out with get arrested. Yeah. Like, what are the chances of that? I feel like God was like, hey, dude, if you keep this up, like, this is what's going to happen.
And it's crazy because my dad was taking my brother and I to our practice and stuff in West Covina at the high school there. And we see him and I'm like, that's Josh. Dang. Boom, we pull over. My dad, like, jumps out, talks to the cop, and he's like, look, I'm a pastor at this church, whatever, like our previous church. Like, I know this kid. Can you release him to me? Mm-hmm. And the officer's like, nope. Like, this dude, like, we've been watching him for a while. We've been looking for him. Like, this dude was crazy. So he was all over, like, West Covina, La Puente area, like, just tagging on a bunch of stuff, like, doing all this crazy stuff or whatever. So they're like, we've been looking for him, like he's going down. And for some reason that just made me so emotional. And I was like crying like big time, like so sad. But yeah, I felt like that was like a big reminder to me. Like God was like kind of telling me like, dude, like you want to go down this path? You want to do that stuff? Like you have a father. Like this kid doesn't have a dad.
Yeah.
Like I know his story. He does not have a dad. It's just his mom at home. You have a dad taking you in his Mercedes. He had a Mercedes at the time. He still has it, like on 20s, like nice car at the time and everything. Like you have a dad, you're driving in the back of a Mercedes. He's taking you to a basketball practice. And this basketball team was a travel team. We'd go to Vegas. We'd go all these places. Like my dad, we had to pay money to be on this team. It was a travel team. Like, dude, you're blessed. You're privileged. You know what I mean? What are you doing mixing with stuff like this? Like, but at the time, like I got a reality check, but at the same time, like I wish it would have changed me right then and there. But I mean, but it's still, I still remember that to this day. It's crazy.
Wow, that's so crazy. And it's so funny. So I guess that kind of explains it, because I've always kind of wondered, like, I know you were like brought up in the church, right? Like you leading ministry, you're preaching and everything. But every time we hang out, like outside of the church, or even when I talk to you, I'm always like, dang, Manny is super street smart. Like for someone who was like brought up in the church and didn't really experience like the world fully, you're just like very, very street smart. So is that where like all of that comes in? Like that kind of just like not taking part of it, but like kind of being there with all those people you were hanging out with? Is that where you learned all your street smart?
Yeah, I think so. I think for sure. I think, like I said, like even now I got to be careful, because like honestly, like the danger kind of like craziness, like you guys, I've shared some crazy stories where like we'll see something on the street. Like Andrea and I were driving one time, we see this lady like running with like her daughter in her hand. Like she's the lady is barefoot. It's 12 o'clock at midnight. We're leaving the warehouse. We just packed up. We're leaving the warehouse. We're going home. We see this lady barefoot with her kid like running up the street. Like most people would be like, I'm not getting involved in this. Like Andrea and I are like right there in the mix. I love Andrea because she's like down like me too. So boom, we pull up on her like, what's going on? Oh, my boyfriend just threw me out like this crazy, blah, blah, blah. We're like, jump in the car. Like, this is crazy. Like, what if the boyfriend's around the corner watching us, can come up with a gun? Like, we're kind of just crazy. So even now, like, I got to be careful sometimes because I still try to do that. But for some reason, it was always just like that, like anything that was kind of dangerous or kind of like my friends and I, like back when we were like in high school and once we kind of graduated and stuff, we literally would go to Hollywood. And we would just take like our skateboards and stuff, and we wouldn't, you know, we were underage we weren't 21, so we would literally go and we would like find like sketchy alleys, and like we'd be like, oh, sketchy alley, let's go down here, like just to find like trouble. Well, not that we were gonna fight, but just like see what we can find and get into. Like it was just crazy. So, anyways, I think it's just that. I think I've always just like, I wanted to branch out from. It's kind of like a rebellion, right? Like I just wanted to branch out from just being like, oh, this good Christian kid, like, oh yeah, I am a Christian. I can do that stuff. Like, you know, I can do it really well, but I kind of wanted to be a little crazy too, you know, but I felt like I was smart. Honestly, like I was dumb at the time. Like you ever look back at your life and you're just like, I was so dumb. Why did I do that? Right. Yeah. Like we have those moments. And I always think about that. I'm just like, I thought I was so cool. Right. Like, oh, I'm not drinking. I'm not doing any of these things. I'm going to church, but then I'm still trying to like find issues and find problems and try to be in the mix when I shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I don't know why that. It's kind of like a rebellion, you know what I mean? That's in us, that just like, I don't know. We don't want to be like good, and we want people to like think we're cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just dumb. Now I look back, I'm like, that's so stupid.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it gets you in so much trouble.
It does. Yeah, but yeah, I try not to be like super like, oh, I'm street smart, all this stuff. But you know, we've had family in gangs, and you know what I mean? I think we're living in LA, like it's all around. I remember it real quick. I'll never forget, like there's a burger spot right here, right? Like close by us. And I remember like in high school at the time, like I'll never forget, like I was at the hamburger spot right here, and like Baldwin Park High School they were getting out of school or whatever, and this was probably like 2006. This is when like everyone still had shaved heads, baggy clothes and stuff. I'll never forget, I was like ordering my hamburger, this at 3:00, and some dudes come up to me like, hey fool, where you from, blah blah, crazy on me. And like I had spiky hair, you know what I mean? Like I didn't look anything crazy, and they were like super crazy on me. And I'm just like, I'll never forget, after that I was like, man, Baldwin Park's crazy, like you got to just be careful. Now it's funny because you know, as we're building the warehouse and stuff, sometimes I'll go to the hamburger spot, you know, these last couple of years, or even just if I'm here, whatever, I'll just go grab something to eat. And now I see the kids walking out of school and they're just like hipster kids, or it's like they got their hoodies on, they're just like quiet, listening to their AirPods, walking. I'm like, man, I used to be so wild around here back then. Right. But yeah, I don't try to like claim that I know everything, but I for sure, like I grew up in a crazy time, you know, and like I was, you know, we lived some of our life. We were in La Puente. We were like I said, my grandma was right here in Baldwin Park. I'll never forget, me and my brother one time, she hit us underneath the table as some guy was getting stabbed outside of, and it's like right here up the street, like at some Chinese spot, like for food or whatever, some guy just getting stabbed right in front of us. My grandma like throws us under the table. So we've definitely like seen some things and stuff, but I think just overall, like I said, I just wanted to kind of be in the mix, but not too much in it, but still kind of like be around, you know? So it's just stupid. It's dumb.
That is so crazy. Yeah, we definitely grew up in some crazy times, and it's so different now. Like all the Gen Z and their style, and just right now the Edgars are in.
The Edgars,
my cousins, like literally, it's so funny. I was like hanging out with my family yesterday, and my two little cousins live with me, right? One of them's a 6th grader in elementary. The other one is in middle school. He's a 7th grader. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, dude, when did you guys turn into Edgars? They're like full-blown Edgars. I'm like, when did this happen? Why is this a thing? But sometimes I feel like maybe that's how my mom felt when I was like a scene kid in high school, you know?
Like we go through little seasons, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm this or I'm that, and now I'm this. And it's just like, dude, be who you are, you know?
Right.
That's why now I look at kids sometimes and I'm just like, man, I wish I can go back to high school. I wouldn't care about nothing. But I think at the time, you can hear it a bunch of times. Like people have told me back then, like, don't worry about who's around you. Don't worry about what people think. But it's just hard to believe that. Now, looking back, I'm like, I really don't care. Like, to be honest, I went to a Christian high school. Mm-hmm. Well, my parents have always put us in Christian school, which is like, they sacrificed so much to do that. They started a business. It was hard for them. There was times they were struggling to make, you know, even just gas money, looking under the couches, you know what I mean? For just some change. This was back then when $1 can get you like some gas, right? Yeah. But they did all that just to always make the bill, to always be able to pay for our Christian school. And it's 2 of us, my brother and I, right? They always made sure that was paid. I never went to public school. And so I went to college. I went to a public college or whatever, which was crazy. That was like my first time in like a public. It was just like different. Like, whoa, this is crazy. I was always in Christian school. But anyways, I wish I can go back to my old high school, which is a Christian school. There was teachers drinking there. There was a Bible teacher that didn't believe anything in the Spirit. He believed that just like very weird things, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, I wish I'll blow that place up. I'll be like, man, I'll start a revival in a Christian school, like straight up, like lunchtime, like pray, like we'll be worshiping, like prayer, like fasting. Like we didn't do any of this stuff, and it was a Christian school, but it was very lukewarm. Like I said, there was teachers like drinking, and our school is actually bad. People think, oh, you went to a Christian school, like it's so good. No, our school is struggling for money, so they would literally take all the kids in like Glendora, Covina, San Dimas, all like the Laverne, all the nice areas in the hills. Like if kids got kicked out of those schools for like weed or like, you know, issues, whatever, instead of going to like a continuation school, if their parents had money, they would come to a Christian school because their parents are like, well, we have money to spend. Let's put them in a Christian school instead of continuation. So our school was actually like basically like a continuation school. There was like drug raids. Some guy was like a huge drug dealer from Glendora. Like, so our school was wild. Like it was bad. So now I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I didn't care back then. I'll start a revival in my school. I would not care. I'd be like, man, but it's like at the time that's not what you're thinking, you know? It's crazy.
Dang, that is so crazy. Wow, that's so crazy. Thank you for sharing that, because it's like, I've always wondered, I'm like, yeah, Manny is super street smart. That's
I try.
So, okay, so I do have a question for you. So, starting the church, right? Like, now it's been 10 years and it's just completely developed and it's so awesome. But, you know, I've been coming to the church. Next year will be 2 months. And just to see...
2 years.
Sorry, yeah, 2 years. Sorry, 2 years.
Yeah.
So just to see where you guys started, right, to where you are now, I hear all these stories. Like, you guys have gotten connected with some really interesting people, like a lot of like people who have like really made a name for themselves in the Christian community. So what did that look like for you guys? Like, how did you guys even start to make those connections? Because like some of the guests that you guys have brought, some of the worship leaders, like some of the places that you guys have done worship, you just spoke on that when you spoke on Revival a couple weeks ago. Like, how did those connections even come about? Like, how did that happen? And when did you guys even really start to realize, like, dang, this is like really happening? Like, this really has God's hand over it, because only God can make those connections, right? So when did you start seeing that, and like, how did it start happening?
Yeah, honestly, I think early on once we started the Bible study, like I said, we Apostle David Andrade went under him in his ministry, and then he knew so many people. Like, he's a very behind the scenes almost kind of guy, but he knows like the Bethel people. He knows Lou Engle. Like, they all know him too. Like, he's connected, but he's not out there like ministry famous. So he has so many connections. So with, you know, being so connected and stuff, he started connecting us with even local people. Like I said, Sylvia, and we started connecting people, everyone that she knew, and just like really quickly we started connecting with a bunch of people, which, like you said earlier, is like good and bad, because at the time we were just hungry and we were just like, we have so much wisdom now. We like learned along the way, right? But sometimes like we would connect with people and it's like, well, wait a minute, who is this person? Like, let's slow down. And we've had some crazy stories and stuff, you know, but, as far as like where we are today, like we just had that worship night with Brittany, like a couple weeks ago, like that's amazing. You know what I mean? So honestly, sometimes even now I look back, I posted it on Facebook the other day. I was like, man, like I can't believe where we're at as a church today. Because coming from our previous church, we didn't connect with anybody. Like, to be honest, it was very just like, we just stuck to whoever's just in our church, that was it. Yeah. And like maybe the famous people that are out there, but like we didn't know anyone in any other churches around here at all. Now it's like, I'm connected with like Ryan from Victory Outreach. We got Mondo with Hope California coming next week to speak. Like all these different people. I mean, we could probably go down the list. We have people from all over the country, even all over the world. Shout out to Armando Benner. He's over in the Reunion Islands, you know. He's a rabbi. We connected with a rabbi. Like, what the heck? Like, from around the world. Like, it's crazy, you know. We've connected with so many people. I wish I could go down the list. Everyone from, like, Bishop Bill Hammond, who's, like, he's, like, 90 years old. He's wild. So many people know him, like, the prophet of the nations. Yeah. Like, he was here in this warehouse. Yeah. Like, what? Like, how does he even come here? Like, our little church? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. So, shout out to Apostle Steve Davies as well, too. Like, Steve Davis is, like, awesome, so amazing. A lot of people know him as well, too. But going back to it, yeah, just early on, we started connecting with a lot of people. And it's just connections. I think it's just a lot of times people, what I love about, like, the people that we connect with, every time someone comes here, like a guest speaker, worship leader, whoever, they always have the same thing to say, like, man, like there's something about HTC. Like we feel like just the connection here. We feel family. We feel love. Like I'll never forget one time, and I can't say a name, but we had this prophet come into our living room, starts crying. Like it was just our family. We were hosting him and stuff, and he starts crying. And he's just like, man, I get treated like crap. I get treated so horribly. Like, you know, I can't even pay my bills sometimes. Like, you know, churches will fly me out or, you know, ask me to come out, I'll pay my way there. And these are big mega churches. And then they only give me like a $50 check to come. Like people just like just pouring out all this stuff. All of a sudden he like kind of realized like, he's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Like I'm sharing all this right now. He's like, I've just been building this up for years. I haven't had anyone to talk to anybody about. And I'm just like, dude, this guy's a prophet. He travels all the time. He's constantly pouring out. Mm-hmm. But for that moment, he felt so connected with us. Wow. He's from like another state. Felt so connected with us that was like just poured out everything to us. Wow. I'm like, people don't have this. Like, this is crazy. So that's such a blessing for us to see. Like, yeah, we can name drop like, you know, shout out Matt Cruz, like, you know, Revivalist on Facebook. You know what I mean? I'll never forget we got connected with him. Marcus was at our house, like Isaiah Saldivar, like all these people. Like, I feel like there's no one that we don't know, like in the faith. You know, it's awesome. It's amazing. But I think it's just people feeling like family, feeling like they're connected here, and they just feel the love here, you know. Yeah. And shout out to our church, like everyone here makes them feel so welcome too. Like they're just normal people, but at the same time, it's always kind of hard because it's like I like that people feel like they're just normal, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of like, you know, make sure that they also feel like respected too, because sometimes you can be like too much like friends, and then they kind of feel like, oh, I'm not really respected. Because there's ministers that come here that when they go to another church, that other church like praises the ground they walk on, pulls out the red carpet for them. You know, when they come here, we're just like, what's up, bro? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And so there's like a fine line sometimes that like, you know, we try to make people feel like welcome and comfortable, but at the same time also respecting their title, respecting what they do in the kingdom, you know? Yeah. So, but yeah, we connected with so many people. Dang, so amazing.
That is so crazy. That's so awesome. Yeah, like even the 2 years that I've been here, like those 2 years alone, like, and I'm so new to all of this, right? Like all the big names in Christianity. And so like I feel like for me, it's like once these speakers come here and then I like start to follow them on Instagram or really start to like get to know them more and their teaching, I'm like, whoa, like these people are big time. And like they came to our church. Like that is so crazy. And they were just like normal people. It's like, it's so crazy. But so with everything that you do, Manny, like you do so much. Like you do so much. Like you work full time, like you're in ministry full time, you know, you're on the worship team, you're always like running around, like helping with the cameras and helping with the sound and everything. Like literally you do so much. Like you're a provider for your family. Like how do you balance all of these things along with continuing to maintain intimacy with the Holy Spirit? Like,
that's such a good question.
Yeah, like how do you literally do all of this? Because you do so much for the church, like so much. But at the same time, like you you're so connected, right? Like you, every time you preach, it's like, it's just straight fire, you know, and you show that you have like Holy Spirit within you. So how do you maintain that intimacy with Holy Spirit while doing all of this stuff?
Well, I just want to say real quick, like, I just appreciate you even saying that. I'm not crying, I swear. No, but I appreciate you saying that because, yeah, I don't take that lightly for someone to say that. So I appreciate that. And a lot of people have told me that, you know, after like I preach or whatever, like they'll come up to me or like I've gotten so many messages, even just recently, like the last time I was here and stuff, like I get so many messages like, man, that touched me. And like every one of those, honestly, like I'll screenshot, I'll save it because I'm just like, man, like that just knowing where I came from, you know what I mean? And I would say I don't have this crazy background, but I was so shy back then. So like to see where I'm at today, like it's just that I'm able to have the impact on people, like it's such a blessing. But yeah, like going back to it, it's just for me, you know, I just feel like I want to do everything that I can with the time that I have. Like for me, like being at home, I was just joking with somebody recently. I'm like, I got an Xbox from one of my friends, right? And I'm so grateful for it. But that thing has been collecting dust. If you ask me like what show I'm watching, I'm like, I haven't even turned on a TV in like who knows how long, you know? Like I just don't see any, like I can't be the type to just sit at home and just do nothing. I always want to do something. And that can be good and bad sometimes because sometimes you're like, well, there's a season of rest. But for me, I don't know, I can just calmly say like, that's just not for me. Like I love just being busy and doing things. And I do have to like, you know, make sure that even having time to like spend time with like my wife, take her to dinner, take her on a date or something. Like I have to make time even for that sometimes because I'm so much like in ministry. What can we do? What can I do this? Can I do that? Let's do a podcast. Let's go here. Let's go there. You know, I lead the worship team. You know, we help with our media team, like always researching, like, you know, always doing something. And then on top of work and, you know, there's a lot. But for me, what drives me is like, I've had a lot of friends pass away and they've all been young, you know, starting with the first one that passed away is my friend Michael. Like I said, when we were 17, he died in a car accident. And we were young. We were 17. That was my best friend. Wow. And I was in high school, and that hit me hard, right? And after that, I've had, I feel like a lot of my close friends have either passed away or have just lost touch with them, lost connection with them. But the ones that have passed away, even like Robbie a couple years ago, Rick just passed away last year. One of my friends I posted about him. He was a worship leader at our old church, and I got super, super close with him. This was when I was single right after high school. I was in college, and I was single at the time, and I would spend days at his house, like literally spend the night at his house. He was a worship leader. But we had so much fun. Like that's when I was learning how to play music like a little bit more, and it's just good times. But he ended up passing away 2 years ago as well too. So I've had a lot of death in my with my friends, and then family as well too. You know, my wife's sister Amy, she died in 2019. She was young. I can't remember her exact age. Forgive me, Andrea, for that. But you know, shout out to your sister. But I know for sure she was under 35. I want to say she was like 33 or 34. She was young. You know, she passed away. Andrea's cousin Daisy, she was, I believe at the time she was 29. It was 2016. Wow. I think Daisy was 29 or 30 when she passed. And she you know, I was super close with her. So I've had in the last like 5 years, even the last like 4 years, so many people have died. And for me, sitting back, being mediocre, just kind of being like whatever with life, I can't do it. I'm the type at this point right now where I'm just like, I can go any minute. Life is so precious to me. But to just be like, well, I'll just get by doing the bare minimum, I can't. I can't do it. It drives me crazy. Like, and that's why I'm so thankful that I never got into like really crazy stuff, because I feel like I'm the type where I go all in. If it's a podcast, like I'm researching lights and I'm researching this and that. I'm like, what can we do? If it's the stage, I'm here till like 12 o'clock at night sometimes, literally playing with the colors on the stage, like what looks good, you know, this and that. And, you know, even like listening and like mixing like our live stuff and everything, like listening in my car, like 1, 2 in the morning, you know what I mean? Just playing it and going back in the house, editing something, you know, the audio, going back into my car, like, I'm all about like perfection. It's just like, for me, I don't want to put anything out. I don't want to like, at this point in my life, I want to do everything that's like perfect unto him. Why? Because things can happen like so quickly. I want to give everything that I can. So at the same time, I got to know that I'm not Superman. I got to know that, hey, God needs his time too. So for me, I've been driving the last year and a half for work. And that's been such a blessing because I've been able to do ministry, but I've been able to spend time with God. And like how you said, how do you balance everything? Because you're doing so much and you're speaking, you're doing this and that. For me, it's just like, for a lot of people, they might feel like, man, I don't have time. Let's say like some people have kids. They're just like, man, I don't have time to spend time in my secret place. But it's like, okay, can you wake up at 5 a.m. from 5 to 6 and have your secret time with God while your baby's asleep? For me, it was driving home from LA every day or even driving there. Boom, I'll put on worship. I'll put on a sermon, even like a podcast, like a man of God just talking. And boom, I'm just having my time with God right there. Now, is that your secret place? Is that in your prayer closet? No, it's not for me. I don't have that luxury right now just to be at home and like Seymour, for 7 hours a day, just praying and fasting. I don't have that privilege right now. There's too much going on for me to do. But it's like, when can you find time in your schedule? I feel like everyone has time to do that. Everybody. It doesn't matter how busy you are. Then if you got to get an hour less of sleep, then do it. Like I can and I get it. Not everyone else can be as high intensity as I am, but I can run on like 5 hours of sleep. Like right now I'm on 5 hours because this morning Andrea had to wake up early. We were up at like 6:30. I went to bed like last night like at 2. Like I can function on really low sleep and not everyone can. So I don't want to like hold anyone to that. Yeah. But I'm just like, there's so much to do. I kind of joke, and my mom hates me for saying this, but back then I would say like, I could sleep when I'm dead. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like that where I'm just like, I don't want to waste any time. I want to do everything I can, give everything I can. That's why I'm so passionate about ministry. I'm so passionate about leadership. I'm so passionate about the things of God because I'm like, don't be mediocre around me. I've said this on the mic. I'm like, I can't handle friends that are like that. Yeah. I've told people this. I'm just like, if you're mediocre, I can't handle that because I'm like, this whole like, I'm okay. Yeah, God's cool. That's good. We can go to church. I'm like, no. Let's go all the way in. Let's pray. Let's do this. Let's run that. Let's like do all this stuff. I'm like, I can't because I could die tomorrow. I could die tonight. Yeah. Like there's no time to play games and waste. So all that to say is I'm wild and I get it. Not everyone can keep up, but I'm just like, when you experience death, to be honest, and friends and people that have died young, like you realize life is so precious and there's only a small amount of time that we can work here. When we get to heaven, there is no work. When we get to heaven, there is no running around doing this and doing that and lights and this and that. We're done. So my thing is like, if I have to suffer and be busy and do all this stuff, and sometimes I drive myself crazy and get 2 hours of sleep while I'm here, even if I did it every single day for 80 years, that's cool with me. Because for eternity, I'm going to be chilling. Like right now is no time for vacation. I feel like I'm turning up right now. I'm getting crazy. But right now, I'm preaching right now. Right now, there's no time for vacation. Like do everything and anything that you do. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So like if you're gonna go all the way, go all the way. That's why I'm so glad I never got into gangs. I say this like my dad. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm crazy. Maybe this is Celsius right here. Who knows? Good. Real quick, I'll say this, and this is my personality at this point. I'm so glad that my dad, his stepdad was in LA, and shout out to my grandpa. He comes to our church sometimes. He pops in. It's so cool. But they were all part of like a big Mexican gang that's in LA that's still there right now. They control like. It's wild. They were there in LA. My grandpa moves when my dad's still young, moves to West Covina, where they're at now. And that's when I got my dad out here. And then that's when we kind of grew up here in West Covina and stuff. But if my grandpa never decided to move and we stayed there, and let's say I joined the gang that they're a part of, because it's a family thing, I would have for sure been a part of it. My dad would have been a part of it, would have passed it down. Like that's just how it is, right? I would have been crazy. I for sure would have been dead or locked up already. Because the way I am, I'm going all the way. So if I'm part of that, then I'm going all the way. I'm sliding on people. I'm looking for enemies every night. I'm doing this and that. I'm drugs, everything. Like I'm just crazy. I'll go all the way. That's just how my personality is. So I'm so thankful by the grace of God that I'm on the right path, because the way I am is so intense that I'm just like, man, anything that I do, I can't just do it just kind of basic or just half, I'm going all the way. So I'm so thankful I'm not into drug dealing, this, that. Like I'm on the straight and narrow because I'm addicted. I'm addicted to whatever I do. So Thank God it's for the good thing, it's for the right thing. So even now I'm crazy.
That's so crazy. But it's so true though, because it's like God made you this way. God made you so passionate and like 100% everything that you do. And it's like, if you don't have that proper guidance, and if you don't have like just like that covering and just like the right leadership in your life, the enemy can snatch that real quick and use it for his kingdom real quick, you know? So it's so awesome. Like, yes, like you were saying, by the grace of God, that you were able to like harness that and use it for the kingdom of God and not for the kingdom of darkness, because enemy, I'm sure, is aware of that and would have loved to use that for his kingdom, you know?
He
So
would have
that's
used me for
crazy.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like as you're saying all this, like I'm just picturing you, like every time I see you, how you said like there's no season of rest for you. I'm like, now that I think about it, whenever I look at you, even when you're sitting down, you're like sitting there, you're just like looking around, like tapping your leg, like what can I do? What needs my attention right now?
Yeah.
Even someone today, we went to go eat after church, right? And someone was like, yeah, like Manny, I noticed he's just like always like looking around and like watching and like seeing. I'm like, yeah, that's Manny.
My teams hate me because they know me. I'm like a perfectionist too. It's gotta be good. Because I'm just like, man, like if we're gonna do something, let's do it all the way.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's not be like even our live stream, all this and that. I'm going on YouTube. I'm checking in. You know what I mean? I'm making sure everything's good because I'm like, even our setup or whatever, I want to make sure everything's good because I don't know. I think it's just the way like God's kind of had me and stuff. But it's allowed us to grow and it's allowed us to push our boundaries. I never thought we'd be doing the things that we're doing now. I don't want to say it's all because of me, no. But like I know I've had a big hand in that by the grace of God. Like He's literally given me that to like lead people. And what I love too, real quick, is like I love that people like can trust me because I feel like they know that I'm in the trenches with them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just one that's like on this high horse and I'm like, you guys do everything and you guys do this. And I say this very humbly, but I do the most work out of anybody in this church. And I say that very humbly. So when people come and they try to like complain or they're trying to be like, well, it's too much, this and that, I'm like, you guys don't even do half the stuff I do. I'm here late night sometimes. I'm here by myself. I was here in the rain last night, like packing up and stuff. And like, I'm pretty sure there's men of God out there looking at me like, wait, you're the pastor son, you preach, you do this, someone else should be doing this for you. Yeah, they should, and people do help me. Trust me, I have the amazing staff. They all help me. They know who they are. Like, they're amazing, and I've given them their flowers and shouted them out and all that stuff. But like when people come and like, I don't know, they try to be like, oh, like that's just a lot, whatever. I'm like, no. Like I do a lot. But it's like, I don't know, I just feel like we got to give, like, perfection is key. And it says in the word, like Jesus is like, be perfect as I am perfect. Like, yes, are we ever going to be perfect? No. But it doesn't mean that we can't strive for that. So I take that very literal, even like in a setup, even in like what we're doing, even in like, I just want to make sure that we're really like dialed in, but at the same time being open to what God has to do. You know what I mean? So a service can be so perfect in how you laid it out, but sometimes it's too much. And Andrea reminds me of this sometimes because she's like, hey, like, you know, like it's okay, back off a little bit, you know, whatever. Because sometimes like we gotta do this, we gotta do that. But it's just because I want to put like our best foot forward. You know what I mean? Like the way I look at it is like we're presenting this to God, whether it's a service, a prayer meeting, whatever, a podcast. Like this is God's work. Yeah. So I want to give like the best. You know what I mean? So I don't know. My staff probably hates me sometimes, but no, they said they don't. They don't. But I'm just like, I just like, but again, going back to this, I feel like they trust me because I'm in the trenches with them. Yeah. Like I said, like I'm there with them. I'm setting up, I'm tearing down. I'm not just like, hey, do this, do that, when I'm just like sitting down, kicking back. Like, no, I'm doing this with you guys. So it's like, I feel like people trust me and people like are cool, you know, because of that and stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I love so much because like I'm under you and Andrea for transitioning, right, for prayer leader. And I love so much that you guys aren't like figured out. Like you guys walk us step by step of like what you expect from us. And you're always pushing us like to do more and just to like move past that comfort zone, you know? So you guys are awesome leaders.
Thank you.
And speaking of that, the last question I have for you before we start to wrap it up is, so you and Andrea lead our singles ministry, right? So you guys are married. Yes, Single Focus. Oh, I love that ministry so much. It's just such an awesome time. So Single Focus, for those who don't know, pretty much it's like all the singles that go to Harvest Time, or even if you don't go to Harvest Time, you know, if you know someone from ages 18 to 45, if you're not married, we just kind of gather, fellowship, and you and Andrea lead that. And that ministry is so special because we do have a lot of young singles in the church, right? So I tell Drea this all the time, but honestly, I love your guys' relationship so much. Just to hear like your guys' story, like to see where you guys are now. And I tell Drea this, that you guys are just such role models to what a godly marriage should be. And I know a lot of singles kind of battle what that looks like, you know, and especially kind of just like lose hope when it comes to like just dating. What does dating as Christians look like, you know, like, oh, God has me in a season of waiting, but I don't want to be in a season of waiting, you know. But I love so much that you and Drea lead that, and you guys just really show us what a godly marriage should be. And one thing I've always noticed is you are such a man of God, but you are such a man of God also in your marriage. You are such a man of God to Drea as a husband. So
You hear that, Andrea? No, I'm just kidding. She
Wow.
loves me. I'm just kidding. She loves me.
So one question I have for you is, what advice do you have? Because I feel like there's so many right now. I feel like, because also on TikTok, like I'm on single Christian TikTok. It's like a thing, right?
That's a thing, huh?
It's a thing where everybody's like, I'm in a season of waiting. Like I'm looking for my man of God. I'm looking for my woman of God, right? And like, and just in general, you know, we have a lot of singles in the church as well.
Yeah, we do.
For now, until, you know, God says it's time. But
or till you guys make the move. Come on, now, let's be real. Come on, let's be real.
So
God's just waiting for you guys to just, hey, let's go out for some coffee. Come on, let's be real. Okay, sorry.
So that's actually what I want to segue into, right? So I feel like, number one, it's so important that we stay in protocol with this stuff. Like, absolutely so important that if we're going to do it, we got to do this right. And we got to do it in protocol. Like, come on, guys. We know protocol. We got to stay in protocol. But what advice do you have, right? Being married, how long have you guys been married? 6 years?
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome. So you and Andrea have an amazing marriage. So what advice do you have, number one, for women of God who are in that season of like, type of advice of like, don't settle, don't compromise? And then also for men of God who are like, man, I want to go for it, but I don't know. So like, what would be your take on that? And what type of advice would you give for that?
Dang, to the singles. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just share it real quick. So like with our story with Andrea and I, we always share this. Like, I wish I could be like, because I met her, like I said, like I've known her for a long time. Her brother, she's a twin, right? So like her brother's like, you know, I was best friends with him. People were like, dude, how'd you get with your best friend's sister? Like, that's such a no, you know what I mean? But I never forget, I asked him, I was like, hey, Andrew, what's up with your sister? You know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, dude, go for it. Like, he totally gave me the thumbs up. He like hooked us up and everything. It was cool. But with that, like, I wish I can say, you know, that, oh, we asked for godly counsel before we started dating. I wish I could say that I prayed and I fasted and I waited for 5 confirmations before God said to date her. No, I didn't. I literally straight up was like, yo, what's up? You know what I mean? Like, hit her in the Facebook message. Like, there was no DMs back then with Instagram, right? So it was just like, hit her with a Facebook message. Hey, like, let's hang out. Like, you know, it's so cool you're coming back to church, all this and that. And I wish we could have had done it the right way in a sense. And I don't want to say we did it the wrong way, but, you know, different than how I would advise singles now, right? Mm-hmm. But I think for us, it was like, I was so set that like, okay, this is the first girl I'm calling like my girlfriend. That was like part of the testimony, right? Like the first girl I'm bringing to my house, the first girl that ever met my grandma, you know, all this stuff. Like, I was like, she's the one, and I'm going to fight to whatever's going to happen. Like, I pretended like, even though she's my girlfriend, I pretend like this is my wife already. Like, this is the only option for me at this point. Like, I'm not going to be the one to be like, you know, 20 girlfriends and bringing all these girls every week. Like, no, like, this is the one. And if it doesn't work, then it had to be something really bad. So in the very early on, it was rocky. It was hard because I had never been in a relationship before. She had been in relationships before, but people have like cheated on her and, you know, just worldly stuff that's happened and stuff to her. Nothing crazy, but just like the normal worldly stuff, right? Like cheating and this and that and all this drama or whatever, right? So even to the point where like one time we had like an argument and she's like, oh, I'm just so done. And I'm just thinking like, oh, we broke up. Like, oh my God. Like, I just got this girlfriend and we're done, right? Yeah. I think we broke up. I'm crying. Like, I didn't tell her this, right? Like, I'm crying all night. The next morning she hits me up like, oh, what time are you coming? What? I thought we broke up. She's like, no, we didn't break up. And I'm like, you said you were done. And she's like, no, that just means like, I'm just done with the conversation. Like, I'm thinking we like broke up and stuff. Like, so it was so hard for me to like figure out what being in a relationship was. But guess what? I was dedicated to it. And I was like, we're going to make this thing work. Now she's coming out of people cheating on her and all this stuff like that. She has a crazy history with her family as well too. The males in her family seeing all this happen to her family, like all this stuff, like her testimony is wild. So she comes into the relationship, you know, never being with a guy like me who's never done any of these things. She starts feeling different and she doesn't deserve me, or, you know, even just like jealousy stuff kind of coming up. And so it's just a lot of just crazy stuff. But back to the theme was like, we're going to make this thing work. And I feel like, to be honest with you, a lot of singles that I've known have called it quits on things I'm just like, you guys are weak. I was like, I've been in tears for this girl. Like, I thought we broke up. There's been so many times that we've gone through, I've been through a crazy process with her, but I was like, we're going to make this thing work. Like, I really feel like God brought her to me. We're going to make this thing work. If I was like some of these singles now, to be honest with you, we would have been broken up, never married, never started the church. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like, I just feel like, okay, you got to know when to call it quits. Like, if you get with somebody as a Christian and it's just not working or whatever, like, if God's telling you to break up with them, okay, fine. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I just would say, like, don't be so quick to like call it quits on things. Don't be so quick to be like, oh, I need 20 confirmations and stuff. Like, it's okay to date. It's okay to kind of throw, you know what I mean, as like guys, right? Because guys should pursue. I believe, I'm kind of old school, right? I still believe like guys should pursue, you know, girls. Come on, right?
Absolutely.
But like at the same time, like girls can shoot their shots too. You know what I mean? Like, it's not bad either. But you know, it's like, guys, it's okay to ask a girl, hey, like, would you mind? And for girls, hey, single girls out there, like, reality check. It's okay for guys to ask you out and for you to go. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. It's okay to be okay for a little coffee date, right? Like, you drive your own car there. If you feel comfortable, right? Drive your own car there, whatever, meet for coffee. Like, how do you think our parents did it back in the day? They didn't have like, oh, we're just going to FaceTime or we're just going to do this and that. Like, no, like they met in person, right? Like, it's not like this. I feel like sometimes we over spiritualize relationships. Sometimes we're just like, oh my goodness, I can't. And I need my spiritual partner there. And I need my covering there with me on this day. Like, no, it's okay to go out. You know what I mean? Have boundaries. Like, my thing is like, sometimes we're so closed off and it's just like, that's not healthy because it's like, you're not teaching yourself how to be responsible. You're not teaching yourself how to have self-control, right? But there's things not to do. Don't set yourself up for failure. Don't be in a room by yourself. Like, these are things we teach about, you know what I mean, our single focus. Don't be in a room just by yourselves with the doors closed. You know what I mean? Don't spend after midnight, you know, in a car by yourself somewhere. Like, be smart about it. And if you're in a Starbucks, you're not making out with a girl in front of, you know what I mean? In a Starbucks, like, that place is healthy. You know what I mean? I don't know. It could be somewhere like in public and stuff, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like sometimes we over spiritualize things. But going back to it, yeah, I think in today's age, it's definitely hard to find a good Christian, like, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, because of the season that we're in right now. I feel like a lot of people are calling themselves Christians, but they're not. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of churches, you know, leaders, stuff like that. They're like looking for somebody, but they're super lukewarm or they're doing this or they're doing that. So it's definitely harder to find a good Christian person to be with at this age. I feel bad for you guys because it's like, it's getting harder. Like, it really is. But at the same time, hey, I'm just going to be honest. There's amazing Christian singles in our church. There's amazing Christian singles all over. But sometimes I feel like I don't know. I just think sometimes people have this bar set super high. If I had that bar set super high with Andrea, it wouldn't have happened. I would have been like, my testimony, I'm super saved and I've never done all this stuff. Like, I'm going to be with Andrea who's done this. And she wasn't crazy, but like, she has this testimony and she comes from this background and this and that. Like, oh, I don't need that. I need a woman. You know what I mean? I need a person that, like, no, like, you know what I mean? And look, you just called our relationship healthy. You just said our marriage is amazing. All this stuff, people look up to us. What if I had all these things? That stuff would have never happened. So I don't know. So I get passionate about it because sometimes I just feel like people like over spiritualize things. Like, it's okay to date. It's okay to have, you know what I mean, to be asked out, to try to ask people out. At the same time, don't hit up every girl's DM and just throw your shots everywhere and try to see who bites. Like, be careful, be strategic and stuff. Try to feel it out a little bit. But Christian women, like, if it's a good guy and everything, he's showing some interest, let your guard down a little bit. You know what I mean? Fill it out, pray about it, right? Yeah. But I don't know, just don't over spiritualize it and let God do the work. Like, you know, be smart. And if you guys both are spirit filled, you guys hear from God, I believe like literally any relationship can work out. If you guys are spirit filled, I got to say that, right? Like, if you guys are both mature, like, there's things to look out for and there's red flags and all that, right? I don't have I feel like we do a whole podcast on that, but it's just like, shoot your shot, be spirit filled, be spirit led. Know when to walk away is good too. And the last thing is like, have your, like, how would I put it? Have your expectations, but don't set them so high that no one can reach them.
That's so good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have like, these are the things I'm looking for. You know what I mean? But don't be like, don't discredit everybody because they don't meet all of your checklists. Like, throw that checklist out. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. Because like I said, if I had that, like, even with Andrea and me, like, she could have had a checklist and some of the things that I didn't check off, you know what I mean? So I think it's just that. I feel like we could spend a whole time on that. But man, I love seeing godly couples. We've seen godly couples come out of here that have gotten married and stuff, and I'm like so proud of them. Yeah. Like, it's so cool to see like Christian couples meet here and like be on fire for God and stuff. I'm like, dang, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard. I feel bad for you guys.
Wow,
It's hard. It's hard. Like, how do you find someone that's good? Like, it's tough. Like the number is definitely like going down. But imagine when you guys really get together with that one, it's like, dang, you guys have changed the world, especially the climate that we're living in right now. Like,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's so
Christina's single, guys, if you guys are out there, just kidding.
Wow, Maddie.
I'm trying to plug, if you know it, I try to plug all our singles.
Plug.
All of our singles, I'm like, we have amazing singles in our church. Like you guys, I'm just going to say there's some single people in our church. I look at all of our singles and I'm just like, this person with this person and that. You know what I mean? I see this, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be matchmaker, but we have some amazing singles in our church. Like honestly, amazing set of girls, amazing set of men. Like it's just cool. Like I'm just like, Lord, however you, whatever. Sometimes people meet other people in other churches, that's cool too and everything. But I'm like, man, we have such amazing people. You know what I mean? So like, I'm gonna let God do that.
That's hilarious. Thanks, Manny, for throwing it out there.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for just explaining that and just touching on that. Because honestly, I feel like it definitely can be over spiritualized, like 100%, 100%. I will say though that like being single as of right now and being like Christian, but coming from like dating in the world to like then being saved and understanding that now like I'm a woman of high value and like there's things I can't tolerate, it has saved me from a lot of heartbreak and it has saved me from a lot of things that I would have tolerated in the past, but now because I have these godly values in my life and things I won't compromise for, it's saved me from so much. And sometimes it's hard because it's like the what is it, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, you know? Because sometimes it's like, oh, no, I would love to, but I can't. No, thank you. So just certain things, right? But it saved me from a lot of like disaster because it's like, if it wasn't for God, I probably would have said yes to that and it probably would have ended badly. So I definitely want to thank you for just explaining that it's not like a super spiritual thing. And sometimes we definitely can over spiritualize it, you know? So coming from the leader of Single Focus, you know, it's so awesome to hear that. But I just,
and shout out to, thank you for giving that plug that you said that it's cool that Andrea and I lead it. Because to be honest, I get some hate. I get some messages. There's some haters out there. I'm just going to address it right now. I'm kind of crazy. Sorry. I'm just like,
it's
we're going to end the podcast.
Let's
I'm
go.
like, let's talk to the haters now. No, but I try not to be too messy, but like, okay, there's some people that were like, how does a married couple lead singles? Like, that's so wrong. Like, that's so messed up. I literally get these messages from people like, that's so whack. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, like, you guys don't know what it's like to be single. I'm like, I'm not that old, first of all. Like, what the heck? Like, I could be single tomorrow. Like, it's not like I'm just like, I have all like this huge family and kids. Like, Andrea and I haven't gotten blessed with kids yet. Like, I'm not like this. They make me feel like I'm just like this super old man, like 80-year-old man with like grandkids. And like, I don't know what it's like to be single. Like, today's age is a little bit different, but like, no, like, I don't know. I personally think it's like, it's cool to, like, if I was in our old church previously and there was like a thing like that and there was a married couple, I would love that because I'm like, whatever you guys did has got you where you're at now. Like, that works. Like, I kind of feel like if it was just like a single leading the singles, it's cool, but it's kind of like, not the blind leading the blind, right? But like, you've never been to where you guys are trying to go. So you guys can figure it out. But I don't know. I think it's cool that you guys, and we've had a lot of singles like come to us, like maybe not in the group setting, right? But they'll message us, they'll call us, whatever, like ask for advice, this and that. Hey, this came up. Hey, I'm thinking about dating this person. Hey, what do you think about that? Like, we get these messages all the time. So like, I think it's cool, you know? So forget the haters out there.
No, I think it's like, it's so cool because it's like, yes, some people are called to being single, right? But then ultimately, majority of, from what I see, the singles at our church want to be married and want to have a godly spouse at some point in time. So it's like, we want to have like those leaders that have been there and have done that and have achieved what we're trying to achieve and to help us heal to get to that point, you know, or just like help guide us to get to that point. So I don't know why anybody would say, why would you lead singles? But you guys
and I'll say this real quick. Can I say this real quick? Our marriage is not perfect. I never, ever, 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 ever times a million ever want to come off like I'm perfect. Whether it's on a podcast, whether it's preaching, whether it's whatever. I go through things just like anybody else goes through things. Like our marriage is not perfect. Like, Andrea is probably going to watch this and be like, amen. Like, right? Like, our marriage is not perfect. For sure. So people look at us and be like, oh, your marriage? No, it's not. We go through things. I have my stuff I have to work on. She has her stuff she has to work on. But the biggest thing is like, we're not giving up. Like, we know God put this thing together. There's a whole bunch of people that are looking at us that are like, you know what I mean? We're basically leading. Like, even people that don't even acknowledge us are watching us. You know what I mean? We're examples for people. So I just want to share that real quick. Like, our marriage is not perfect. For sure. I'll be the first one to say I'm very open book, very open. Like, even sometimes too open. I gotta be careful because like I represent Andrea too, right? Like, I gotta be careful what I say. But like for me, I'll talk about me and my problems. Like, I am not perfect. Like, she can tell you this 100%. Like, we just had an argument. Like, I'll tell you right now, we just had an argument. Like, even just this last week. And it's just like, boom, these are the things I got to work on. I got to be more open. I got to be more, I got to communicate more. I got to do this. I got to do that. And it's like, yeah, I do. I'm not perfect. Like, we argue still. Sometimes we argue on the way to church. Sometimes we argue 2 minutes before we hit the stage. Like, we're not praying and fasting and all this every service. Like, some people make this whole thing like, oh man, our marriage is so, like, no, this is real life. Like, we're arguing on the way to church and we're going to lead worship and everybody. But right before, we always get that little like, like, let's just pray real quick. All right, hey, let's just get through this service. Like, we'll talk about it after, right? And then boom, the Spirit hits, we're good. And then like, we're fine after, you know, we always like make up and stuff. We're cool. But like, things happen, life happens. So just, I want people to know that we're not perfect, but man, we're down to put in the work. And that's what I love about it. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome, for being so open about that.
I am. Open book, man. That's the way to do it.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Manny.
Yes.
Honestly, this podcast was amazing. Thank you for being so open and just explaining everything and just giving us an insight onto like the story behind Manny, you know? Like, we see this awesome man of God, but you know, there's like so much that goes into that. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you? I know you probably put your information on previous podcasts, but if somebody wants to like reach out to your personal handle or just has any questions for you, where can they reach you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can reach my publicist, my agent. No, I'm just kidding. No, but just Manny ATG. I think that's just an Instagram, Manny ATG. I haven't made like just an Instagram page just for Against the Grain yet. That will probably be in the works. But sometimes I'm so busy. I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do that. But it'll come one day. But right now, just Manny ATG. They can follow me, connect with me, whatever. And then, just I always encourage everybody to follow, you know, podcasts or whatever, subscribe. It's been going up. I want to say that real quick. Man, this channel's been blowing up. Like, there's videos, I'm just like, that video, like, what the heck? Like, so it's amazing. But yeah, Manny ATG on Instagram, on Facebook. I think it's just Manny F for my middle name, and then Santillano on Facebook. So follow me on there, man. I post some crazy stuff sometimes. If you get offended by my stories, sometimes I'm like, I post some crazy stuff. Not anything bad, but just like in your face type stuff. Like, I use my social media to preach. Like, I really do. I'm not doing no mediocre stuff. I'm not doing no compromise stuff. Like, I'll speak the truth on there, because I'm like, again, it all goes back to like, I could die tomorrow. Like, I want to just say it like it is. I want to share the gospel. Like, some people a lot of people don't even post anything. I posted that the other day. I know I'm like going crazy, but I just posted that the other day real quick. I was like, how do people, like, it's crazy that people have social media as Christians and they never post one testimony. They never post anything that happened at church. They don't even know what church you go to. They don't post anything about nothing. It's just like a meme. Or, you know, a family picture, which is cool, but it's just like, no, you know, I'm like going to church, where you can find this, that, because I'm just like, man, like, I'm just so passionate about like things we do and stuff. So anyways, Manny ATG, follow me. Yeah,
awesome.
Be good.
Thank you so much, Manny. And just thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Against the Grain podcast. Thank you, Manny, for opening up. I just ask that you guys like, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next episode.